Alrighty, everyone. Good evening. This is meteorologist Timmy Albertson here with you guys for tonight's weather chat slash tropical updates. We have two hurricanes out in the ocean that we're going to take a little bit of a look at. Plus, we have ourselves a pretty decent system that's going to be moving its way through parts of the upper part of the United States over the next couple of days, bringing some snow to some areas. So we'll talk a little bit about that. But let's first begin over in the Atlantic Ocean. We have Hurricane Tammy. Now, let's take a look here at Tammy. Tammy is not necessarily the most, we'll come back to that one. Here we go. Here's Tammy. All righty, right now, kind of a low-end Category 1 hurricane, 75-mile-an-hour winds there. You can see it on the infrared satellite imagery, kind of looking pretty well, or, well, I guess looking better than what it looked like earlier on today. Tammy right now is likely going to kind of maybe try to re-intensify just a little bit more as we go through maybe the next 24 hours or so. Now, the atmosphere is a little bit more favorable over the course where it's going to be tracking about the next, like I said, 12 to 24 hours. So it might try to intensify a little bit more. Unfortunately for Tammy, it's going to be running into an area with a lot of wind shear, and that's going to cause it to kind of weaken off as we go towards the second half of the work week. With that in mind, it'll probably transition to kind of a semi-tropical system, which is why you see those icons there on the Hurricane Center's map, kind of turning white there again as it transitioned to a post-tropical or non-tropical system at that point. But it might try to track over Bermuda, kind of with tropical storm conditions. But again, otherwise, mainly just going to be staying out in the open waters. That's Tammy. All right, let's take a look here at the bigger one right now, and we're going to look over to our East Pacific area here to get some goodies. And this is Hurricane Otis. Now, look below there. You can see how Otis has really kind of gotten itself a lot better organized. It actually really quickly intensified throughout the day today. Now a Category 4 hurricane with winds of 145 miles an hour. It's very possible that Otis might try to maybe intensify just a little bit more here. Unfortunately for Otis, though, it's going to be running into land, and that land being, well, the landmass of Mexico, and it'll likely quickly weaken once it does so, as we often see a lot of times with these systems. Once they reach land, get kind of torn apart and probably just be nothing more than a tropical depression, so kind of the low end of all the tropical systems by the time we get towards the day on Thursday. So pretty strong hurricane right now. Let's go ahead here and we'll take a little bit of a look at the old radar imagery now. Well, we'll take a look at the path here. Let's talk a little bit about its track here. So again, there's the track from the Hurricane Center. Let's go ahead and flip on over to our good friend here, the radar, and we'll take a little bit better of a look here at that tropical system. Let's see, here we go. This is where it is right now, Category 4 hurricane, and it's very possible that it could become a Category 5 hurricane shortly before it makes landfall near Acapulco. Now, of course, there are hurricane warnings that are in effect there, but as I mentioned, as is normally the case with these systems, they weaken very quickly once they hit land, especially with kind of some of that mountainous terrain that is present across parts of Mexico. So a little bit more intensification possible here with Otis. And again, looking at the satellite imagery here, and as a matter of fact, I don't have the complete satellite loop for the day today, at least here on this particular image, but it is kind of cool to watch, how it went from being, well, a hurricane to being a much stronger hurricane there, some rapid intensification. You can see that eye there, not very big, but it's still there nonetheless. And a lot of times with these quickly intensifying hurricanes, they sometimes tend to have a little bit of a small eye, at least initially. All righty. Let's go ahead, folks, and take a look on over at the latest weather map here. We are going to talk about the probability for some snow across parts of Montana. So we're going to flip on over here to our good friend, the surface chart, and let's talk about this guy here a little bit. Take a look at some of those temperatures. We talked a couple of weather chats ago about the station plots and exactly, what you're looking at when you see all these little symbols here. So I won't go into a lot of detail about that this evening, but the main thing to keep in mind here with this particular map here is those red numbers. Those are the temperatures. Now, mind you, this was a couple of hours ago, so obviously they've changed a little bit. But take a look, though, at some of those numbers across southern Alberta. 19 degrees, 15 degrees, 14 degrees. So this is a very cold air mass that we have positioned across parts of the Canadian prairies. And that's a pretty decent area of high pressure. We can see it centered pretty much right over south central Alberta. And the overall parent high pressure is all the way back over in the Yukon, going over towards parts of eastern Alaska. So that's kind of where the parent high pressure is. But for simplicity, we're just going to kind of take a look at this little section here. So we got a lot of colder air that's being forced down along the side here of the mountains. As I've mentioned many times before, cold air is very dense, so it's kind of difficult to get cold air to lift over mountain ranges, which is why you actually see the temperatures over here much more mild. Look at that, 41 degrees out near, I believe that is, I can never pronounce that town name, like Coeur d'Alene, Idaho. And around the Pullman, Washington area, look at that, they're in the lower 40s there. So you go from the teens to the lower 40s. So we certainly have ourselves a contrasting air mass here. We got warmer temperatures down to the southwest, much cooler temperatures up to the northeast, and that has produced, well, a little bit of a frontal boundary. And we can see that right here, this little stationary front kind of hanging out. Now, if we look a little further back off towards the west, we can see this area of low pressure making its way onshore to British Columbia and parts of Washington. That is actually associated with a kind of a larger upper level system that is really going to be kind of playing more or less an important role here in the forecast over the next couple of days. And you can see a little bit of it right there. This map doesn't go, this particular map doesn't zoom out anymore. But what I can tell you is that that whole upper level trough kind of extends further back out to the west too. So over the next couple of days, we are going to be seeing that upper level trough kind of hanging around. And that's going to be good news, as we're going to be seeing some areas of low pressure kind of riding along that. Now, at the same time, we have a little disturbance that is trying to track its way out of the southern part of the U.S. here. We can see it kind of, indicated right here. A little bit of a closed low over parts of northern Mexico. That will weaken off, but again, the disturbance part of it, nonetheless, will still continue to track outwards. And so that's also going to help to kind of produce an additional area of low pressure. I know I'm throwing a lot of information out here for you guys, but we got a lot of stuff that's going on. So let's take a look here, of course. Here's our latest weather map. Again, as we mentioned, there's our area of low pressure. This whole thing is associated with that upper level low. And then down here, we have a little bit of activity associated with that other disturbance that we have across northern Mexico. And the way the air flows with that, you can see here how it just kind of tracks its way up there. So we're seeing these disturbances kind of riding right along here on the eastern edge here, I guess I should say, of all this activity, which again is normally where we see that type of thing setting up. I'll save you all the scientific explanation for right now. So let's go ahead here and take a look over at the WPC. Let's go ahead and see kind of a broad look here at what's going to be going on over the night tonight across parts of across the United States. Let's put it for you that way. So we have our main area of low pressure back here out across Washington. Again, we got that high pressure up towards the north. That's going to prevent that high pressure, or that low pressure at the surface from tracking to the north and to the east. Again, low pressures cannot move a high pressure. The high pressure is always dominant. So we got a pretty tight pressure gradient here. We got a lot of moisture being lifted over that frontal boundary. Again, we have warmer air down across parts of Idaho that gets lifted up over the mountains. That warmer air at least gets lifted up and it goes over that colder air mass, and it creates a rather stable environment. And when we talk about snowstorms, a lot of times we see them in stable environments. Again, we'll save you all the scientific explanation for that, at least for right now. But again, it kind of produces that stratiform, that steady precipitation, especially on the northern edge of that frontal boundary. And that's likely what we're going to be seeing across parts of Montana as we go through the overnight tonight, is somewhat a little bit of a steady snow. Now, again, we can see here that high pressure's influence extends all the way back out across the Canadian prairies into parts of the upper Midwest. And we also have our second area of low pressure. Again, here's our other upper level low down here. Then again, we saw how the way that's tracking out. This is the eastern part of the trough. And we have this little frontal boundary sitting right along it. And we're getting these little waves of low pressure to kind of move right along that frontal boundary. And that's producing some rain out across a good part of the upper Midwest. As a matter of fact, if we were to go ahead and flip back over to our radar, we'll go away from Otis here. Let's kind of zoom out here just a little bit. And we'll move on over to Wisconsin and Minnesota. You can see here we got quite a bit of rain moving right along that frontal boundary. And that's going to kind of remain the case as we go through the overnight tonight. So Most of these are just kind of steady rain showers. There are probably a few little embedded storms here and there. A little special weather statement that expires in just a few moments, but it was for some winds that could maybe try gusting up to 40 miles an hour with some of those little maybe embedded thunderstorms in there, but that's really about it in terms of the thunderstorm activity. This is mainly just going to be some rain. So let's go ahead and go on back to our friends here at the WPC. Let's go ahead and advance it into tomorrow morning. And again, we here at AWSC kind of have our own forecast too, but for simplicities, it's just easiest to show this map. Also, part of it because I'm lazy and didn't feel like creating a whole new map. So let's take a look here. This is going into tomorrow morning. We can see our high pressure still across the Canadian prairies. It's not moving much over the course of tonight, forcing this area of low pressure to kind of navigate around it. Meanwhile, we have a larger area of high pressure off the east coast, much like what we have right now, same thing. And with the way the air flows, that's helping to bring in some warm, moist air into parts of the central part of the U.S. That combined with that upper level low is helping to kind of produce, again, these waves of low pressure riding along it. Now, we can see that frontal boundary kind of does drift a little bit to the south and to the east over the night tonight and going into the day tomorrow. But again, not necessarily the fastest moving system, but we can still see that snow ongoing across most of Montana and likely across parts of the Canadian prairies as we go into tomorrow morning. And even as we advance our way through the afternoon, you can see that high pressure just remains in place and it forces this whole low pressure to kind of navigate around the bottom side of it. Meanwhile, the upper level low associated with all of this, if you want to see on the upper level charts, again, take a look at it here. It's just off to my left. You can see how it just kind of hangs around the Pacific Northwest for about the next 48 hours or so. And then eventually it kind of weakens off a little bit, becomes this little bit of a shortwave disturbance that'll track through North Dakota. But again, the whole parent upper level trough is still going to be hanging around there, and that's probably going to keep things a little bit active across those areas, at least as we go through the next couple of days. So let's zoom out here a little bit. Let's kind of back up here a little bit. So again, right now you can see that second upper level low across northern Mexico. You see how it kind of weakens off, but still tracks its way across the central part of the U.S. I know I'm blocking it, but you get the overall idea. And we still have our other, larger upper level low hanging out across Canada with that upper level trough swinging its way through. So that's just kind of the upper level setup there. So let's go on back here to our map here. And again, as we go into tomorrow evening, our high pressure off the east coast still there, albeit a little bit weakened. Still trying to bring in some moisture, though, off the Gulf of Mexico. If you remember me mentioning many times, the airflow around a high pressure is clockwise. So right here, we're seeing a lot of southwesterly winds in this general area. Over here, it's a northeasterly wind across parts of Montana. But again, the main thing is that cooler air mass that is in place there. And again, that moisture kind of being lifted up over the mountains, condensing over the cooler air. Again, that warmer air lifts over that colder air because warmer air is less dense than colder air, so it can't really move it, so it just has to go over it. And again, that's what's producing that snow up there. All right, let's go ahead here, folks, and take a look as we go into your Thursday morning. Again, we're expecting this whole frontal boundary just kind of still remaining across the upper Midwest. Does not move very much again. It'll start to kind of maybe get a little bit more movement once that the upper level trough shifts just a little bit more to the east. But all things considered, folks, pretty active weather over the next couple of days across the northern part of the United States in the form of rain in the upper Midwest and snow across parts of Montana. This setup is likely going to continue as we go through the remainder of the work week. And again, even as we maybe go into the initial part of the weekend, we can see how that low pressure intensifies a bit more as that shortwave trough kind of moves its way into North Dakota. Again, we took a look at it there. Even though the parent upper level low is still going to be hanging around this area, we're still going to be seeing some waves kind of riding along it. And again, that's going to help that area of low pressure. Now, tomorrow, we're going to talk kind of more about the structure of all this. I know I went through it very, very quickly. I don't expect you guys, unless some of you guys are very familiar with the weather, then you probably understand a bit more than what I'm saying here. But we'll talk more about kind of the setup of this and, why we have this upper level low that's hanging out there and why we're seeing these waves of low pressure. I just kind of wanted to familiarize you all with the kind of the setup over the next couple of days so we can talk more about the structure of all of this rather than, what currently is happening. Again, we try not to make these weather chats too long, so that's why we kind of quickly went through a lot of it today. All right, so active weather across parts of, well, across the northern U.S. That's going to be the main theme as we head through the week. Again, rain mainly off to the east, snow across the western parts there. Again, Montana seeing that snow, and then we may actually be seeing some of that colder air making its way into the upper Midwest around the Northlands area of Minnesota and Wisconsin, where I am, and I might try to transition some of that over to some snow as we go into the weekend. So we are going to be seeing some very below average temperatures, most likely across parts of the upper Midwest and the United States over the next couple of days, especially as we go towards this weekend, going into the start of next week. Again, CPC has pretty much most of the United States, the central part of it, and especially the northern part, likely going to be seeing below average temperatures. Over the course of going into this weekend, or even going not only into this weekend but also as we start off next week here. So again, we're going to talk all about that as we go into the day tomorrow, but again, just wanted to kind of bring it up to you guys really quickly. So that was a lot of information I threw at you guys there. Very cool. Again, we're at the time of the year where we start seeing, these active weather systems. Well, more active weather systems. Fall, winter, and early spring tends to be when we see our strongest systems in terms of low pressure systems, excluding hurricanes, because the temperature contrast is so great. There's still pretty warm down across the south over the winter, during the winter time, but the air across Canada obviously very cold, so that creates a very nice gradient, and that's why we see our strongest systems, at least in North America, excluding tropical, during the winter time, just because the temperature contrast is so great. And it's pretty fun. All righty, everyone. Well, I think I bored you all enough for this evening, so we will be back here tomorrow evening. We'll talk more about the structure of this system and everything else that goes along. We'll take a look at some snowfall reports in Montana. Like I said, they're going to be seeing snow tonight and even going into the day tomorrow. So we should have some pretty interesting pictures, too, from some of the traffic cameras there. So we'll take a look at all of that and much more. So, folks, I hope you tune in tomorrow evening. It'll be a fun one. And one last look while we're on it. I did mention I wanted to show you the overall time lapse here of, let's see here if I can do this really quickly while I still have you all. I wanted to show you how quickly Otis intensified during the day today. We're going to back it up here a little bit, and we're going to get kind of I'll show you this really quickly here on the satellite imagery, and then we'll end this. But I just want to go ahead here while it's loading really quickly. I was forgetting to show you guys something, and that's what it is. All right, we'll give it a couple quick little minute or two left here. Got to load. We're processing a lot of images here on the old satellite imagery here, so we got to wait for it to catch up. It was working faster earlier, just watch now because we're doing this video here. It decides it probably wants to move slowly. But we'll give it a couple minutes. So yeah, that's Otis, by the way. Right now, again, Category 4 hurricane. There we go. Let's go ahead here and see if we can't get this video satellite loop up here. Let's see if we can't get it open. Oh boy, man, we are just eating away the minutes here, aren't we? All righty, give me one quick second here. Hopefully it'll work. Hopefully it will work. We shall wait and see here. For those of you still watching, I'm actually rather surprised you're watching me as I try to load. That looks like it's not going to work, at least for right now. So regardless of the fact, though, oh, here we go. All right, we'll back it up here. Let's take a look. All right, there we go. You can see how quickly it kind of intensified throughout the day today. It was a hurricane earlier on, but look at just how quickly it got itself organized. Nice atmosphere. There's the eye. You can see right there how just kind of quickly that this hurricane intensified throughout the day today. So again, it is expected to be a Category 5 hurricane. Let's double check here with the let's go ahead here. We'll check really quickly with the Hurricane Center here as to what they are expecting. The max winds could reach up to about 160 miles an hour. They're expecting probably later tonight or early tomorrow morning. So, yeah, pretty cool. Yeah. All right. Well, with that in mind, everyone, I hope you all have a good rest of your evening. We'll see you back here tomorrow evening. Take care, everyone.